podcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone, my name is Jillian Schaefer and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Customer Loyalty Series Part 2, How to Become a Low-Effort Service Organization, presented by Jack Evans of SimCloud. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise down. However, you can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar. To submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar. We will answer all questions at the end of the presentation. We are recording this presentation and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees as well as to those who registered but were not able to attend. Please take a moment after the presentation to answer our one survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you software and industry knowledge, tools, and support whenever you need it. We've invited SimCloud here today because they are the industry experts on customer interaction management. So whether you're here doing research for a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions throughout the webinar. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels, so we encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Jack.
Thank you, Jolene, and appreciate everybody joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and get my screen shared. And just as a quick check-in, Jolene, you should be seeing the title slide on my screen, correct?
Yep, it looks good.
Perfect. All right, guys. Well, as Jolene said, this is the second part of the two-part webinar series that we're doing. And for those of you who were with us last time, welcome back. For those of you who are new or maybe digested the previous presentation, maybe downloaded it or downloaded the white paper, again, hopefully found it insightful. And again, we're going to kind of cover some of that stuff today and briefly just touch on what was covered last time. And then we'll dig into some of the new stuff today. And I think I have some cool stuff to kind of talk about towards the end of the presentation and throughout, obviously. As Jolene referenced, we will be doing a Q&A session if anything comes through. No question is unequal in my mind. Feel free to hit me with anything you want. Can be specific to your business, can be specific to some of the research we're going to cover today. So again, don't feel like any question is too small to ask, and feel free to get those submitted. To put a face with a voice, my name is Jack Evans. I've been with SimCloud for about 5 years. It'll be 5 years in October. Worked in a couple different roles, mostly on the sales and marketing side, and I'm now sitting in an account executive seat. And what that title means to us is I'm working with prospective customers and making sure I understand your software requirements, really what the business requirements are, and making sure the software aligns with what you need to do, and making sure I'm setting you up for a successful project. So that's implementation, and then really making sure we have a good lens on future phases. So again, I put my consultant hat on and try to understand your business and your objectives and where and how SimCloud can help. And again, I think some of what we covered today is going to be a good segue into that. So I have an agenda up here. Again, I don't want to be too repetitive for anyone who was on our previous presentation, but I am going to do a quick recap of SimCloud and the Effortless Experience and the research that goes into that book, and obviously, you know, the findings from that research. Do a quick summary of part one of this two-part webinar series. I'll probably spend about 3 or 4 minutes on that. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for the new stuff. And again, if you missed part one, I would encourage you to go download those assets. I think Jolene has that listed online. And again, go digest that content, and it'll have a little bit more context and deeper dive on my summary from today. And then we're going to talk about what low effort service means, not just for your customers, but also for your employees and the impact that can have across the business. Look through it and kind of a reality. So principles are great, but what does that look like for my business? And then ultimately talk about, okay, now that we've talked about all of this, how can we get started? What are some action items that you can be planning as a business to really scale and move into some of these principles here? So I'm gonna get rolling. I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time on myself or us, but just an introduction to SimCloud. As Jolene mentioned, we are the SimCloud application website pipeline as our corporate entity and has been our operating entity since 1999. Our product, our SimCloud customer interaction management product, was launched in 2017. That's a big, hairy sim buzzword there, but really think of it as e-commerce applications for your customers and CRM or sales rep enablement tools for your employees, all combined into a single ERP integrated application. That was a mouthful, so hopefully I didn't lose anybody there. And some of you on today's call may actually be active customers of ours. We have 450 plus active customers, a staff of over 50 employees. So again, if some of you have worked with us in the past or are currently working with us, maybe even somebody I'm engaged in a conversation or a discussion with right now, just maybe repeating some stuff here, but want to make sure you guys understand why it's me sitting in the seat talking about, how to become a better service organization and how self-service tools can really tie into that. So the SimCloud platform, and again, it's not going to be all about us today. It's really going to be more about the overall research and findings, but SimCloud as a solution provider really focuses on two core areas for your business. So we want to help you maximize your market share by providing the best experience for customers, the most flexible experience for customers, and doing that through self-service alternatives. So not having to have every interaction with your business come through a phone or come through email or waiting on a rep to call on your account. So maximizing market share is obviously key, and a solution like SimCloud gives you a competitive advantage in that capacity. And also we want to maximize your operational efficiency, i.e. help you service those customers and grow that market share without adding proportionate headcount. So those were big words. Really the dumbed down version of that is we want to help you grow your revenue to the fullest extent possible. And we want to help you do that in the cheapest operational manner so you can really grow that bottom line and really profit as a business. So that's us. Now I'm going to introduce you just at a high level here to The Effortless Experience, which is a book. I've actually read it. Scratch that, I listened to it. But I would encourage everyone on today's call, independent of working with SimCloud or your interest in SimCloud. I think it's really eye-opening. It's a book or an audio book, whichever capacity you digest it in, that really talks about across industries, across sectors, what are customers expecting now? We all know what Amazon's done to the way that consumers expect to do business, both in a personal setting and in a work setting. And the book is derived from research from a company called CEB. Most of us would be familiar with Gartner, which is how their new operating brand. And the three critical questions you can see on screen, but again, it's all about what matters in driving customer loyalty. We know that customer loyalty, which I'm going to hit on my next slide here, is all about repurchase. So how often is the customer going to come back to you versus a competitor? Share of wallet. So if they have X budget towards what your offering is, how much of that budget are you able to get as a company? And again, the goal would be 100% of that wallet share. And then what happens from a word of mouth standpoint, where when they're talking to competitors in the industry, friends, family, people that they just interact with in a business setting, we want them to talk well about your business. We want them to tell other people about how great it is doing business with you. And that is what drives loyalty. That's what drives long-term success for your business. So again, the book, and you can read on screen here, I'm not a big fan of reading slides to you guys, but again, the bottom line is really about the findings from this research and driving low effort experiences for customers, and that being a key driver of long-term customer loyalty, making sure people are coming back to you, and making sure, again, that Amazon effect, which is not going anywhere, again, you're positioned to capture and really operate in that environment. So a little bit of background there. I always like kind of validating where and what I'm saying. And then the summary from part one, I'm not going to spend a ton of time here either. But the first finding is that focusing on customer delight doesn't necessarily drive long-term loyalty. So again, you can have, and when you think of delight, I mean, that's a pretty vague term in general, but the delight strategy is all about, and when you read the novel or listen to it, the delight strategy is all about, we have this white glove service. We spent all this time on the phone. We were talking about X, Y, and Z, and that's all part of building relationships and rapport. But spending too much time there can actually become burdensome for customers of yours who have other business capacities and needs. So if they're purchasing from you, or they're trying to get an invoice paid, or they're trying to get a question to an answer, they want to do that as efficient as possible. And focusing on that delight strategy isn't necessarily a driver of long-term success. Again, it's something you should focus on. It's something that does matter, but it is not a primary driver there. The second is that satisfaction does not predict loyalty. And really, it goes back to the amount of effort, and you'll hear me talk about effort throughout today's presentation. But satisfaction in terms of, did you satisfy or service what I came here for, is not necessarily a measure or a driver or an indicator that next time I need something, I'm going to come back to you. So you may have satisfied my needs, but it may have taken longer than I wanted to. I may have to frequently and on an ongoing basis follow up on things. You see one kind of saying over there, that hassle factor. So again, just because you're satisfying my needs does not mean that I'm going to come back and purchase from you again. And then the third finding here is that you can mitigate disloyalty by reducing effort. And again, that's the spirit of all of this, is trying to limit the amount of time, the amount of energy, the amount of effort, not only that customers have to place on doing business with you, but that your employees have to place on doing business with customers. So background there, again, I really encourage everyone to go read the book. The summary here really, again, comes back to effort, but key sources of effort, things that, putting myself in, your shoes, or, a prospect that I'm working with, is what are things that customers are having to do? So how many times are they having to contact you to get order status, or to get invoice information, or to place an order, or to get pricing information? How much effort, i.e. how many times, and how much time is a customer spending having to do that? Secondary on here, being treated like a number. I think we've all experienced this in some capacity. I think probably all of us that are paying bills, whether that's your water bill, your power bill, you've experienced you're just a number. So if you get put on hold, your ticket number or your caller number 8 will be with you in 15 minutes. Again, it happens a lot of times, myself included. We wait that 15 minutes and get our needs satisfied that way. But again, that's pretty generic service. It doesn't make me as a customer feel like I'm being treated in a unique environment. And again, that type of interaction often drives multiple interactions, or needing to contact a company more than once. It also drives having to repeat information. And again, I'm walking away from doing business with you or interacting with you feeling like I put in more effort than was needed, and I may be looking at alternative solution providers or product providers. So just findings there. Again, we spent a lot of time on that last month when we spoke, or when I presented to you guys. But that's just kind of at a high level, and summarizing a book in a couple slides isn't the easiest thing in the world. But I thought those were all impactful findings that were worth sharing, and really worth validating what we're going to focus on today. So again, now that we've talked about that, and this is kind of where I left things last week, what can I be doing, or where do I need to shift my long-term focus to align with not only the effortless experience findings, but really just the unknown of, there's this Amazon type experience that everyone expects now. What are they going to expect in 5 years? What are they going to expect in 10 years? And so may not be impacting your industry now, but you really need to be looking long-term at having customer self-service alternatives. So what does that mean? An ability for me to take care of my account, to get my orders placed, to see my account history without having to actually interact with any employee at your business. So I don't need to spend time on the phone. I don't need to wait on follow-up emails. I can just get in, get it done, and get on with my day. And a part of that, and a big part of that, to be honest with you, of making those self-service solutions viable, effective, is having that fully integrated experience. So if I'm a customer and I need to come in and see pricing on items or availability on items, I want to see my pricing, and I want to see the actual inventory, and if it's in stock or out of stock. So again, it's all about leveraging the data that powers your organization and your employees, tying into the third icon here, increasing worker visibility. If you can increase worker visibility, they can be more proactive. And if you can increase customer visibility and the ability to take action, it's going to be better for everybody and really drive that maximum efficiency that we talked about right at the beginning of the opening here. So coming back to the agenda here, again, Appreciate y'all bearing with me on kind of some of the summary points there. And for everyone that's on for the first time today, I hope you found that insightful. But really pivoting now. So what is low effort service? It sounds great, sounds nice, saving money, improving my bottom line. All that sounds obviously great, but what do those principles look like? And so again, you're seeing on screen here, not going to read to you guys, but it kind of comes down to 4 key principles here. Obviously the first one, we've just spent a good bit of time talking about it, so I'm not going to harp on it too much here. But it's implementing self-service channels and making them effective so customers will go that route versus tying up your employees with issues that can be resolved or activities that can happen without your employees getting in the middle of it. The second, third, and fourth point here really comes back to reality, right? So, it sounds great. We put the self-service solution in place. My customers do everything on their own. We have 100% automation. That's not reality for almost every business I've ever worked with. So really 2, 3, and 4 is all about things that your reps need to be either doing or being cognizant of or thinking about when they do have to interact with customers, because it's almost always that is just part of it. So again, the next issue avoidance concept, and we'll spend more time on this momentarily, is just all about identifying, okay, this is why we're interacting now, but what may come up next? And it may not be an issue, it may just be an activity. But what can I do as a rep or as a customer-facing employee to help avoid the need for that personal contact, and or how can I make that contact as simple as possible or streamlined as possible? Third on here is really having your reps understanding and actively working on the feel side of that. As I alluded to, you can't automate everything. So when you are working with a customer, whether it's on the phone, whether it's via email, you want to make sure that customer's perception of the effort they're having to put in doesn't feel too burdensome. So when I'm coming to work with you, I want to feel like it was easy, like it was simple, like it satisfied my needs, and like I can get back to my business. And then the fourth is really key, obviously. It's all about quality interactions over efficient interactions. And what that means, and from my lens and businesses that I work with, it's not about how quickly can I get the customer off the phone. It's about how quickly can I get the customer resolved and therefore feeling satisfied, having quality interactions. And it goes back to, again, what did we talk about? Next issue, avoidance, understanding perception and feel. So again, those quality interactions will really play off of 2 and 3. And again, number 1 up there with the self-service channels reduces the need for those interactions. So that's kind of the intro to the 4 key principles. I'm going to do a deeper dive on each of those specifically on the self-service side, because again, as a solution provider and again, as a sales consultant with SimCloud, this is what I do is help you understand how self-service alternatives can be implemented, can be adopted, and can drive 2, 3, and 4 from our previous slides here. So I'm not going to jump into a deep demo environment today, but I did want to give a visual for what this could mean. So, again, self-service sounds cool, but again, I always think it's important to provide some visuals on it. And self-servingly, SimCloud is a self-service alternative for customers, and it's what I do. So what you're seeing on screen here is my demo site. So it's a fake coffee distributor, but again, should have a look and feel of many of you on today's call. This is just a boilerplate template for our B2B portal. I work with customers to make sure, again, visually it lines up. Sometimes that's more of a retail looking feel. What you're seeing here is our dashboard view on our B2B portal. So this is going to be a login based portal. So if you look here, obviously you're seeing tier 1D demo, but imagine if I'm a customer of yours, it may say Jack Evans, or it may say John Smith or Sally Sue or whoever it is. But again, if this is login based, I'm now in my contained environment. So this is a unique environment. It has my data. I can do things like look at products and discover products. I can build out favorites list. I can look at a product catalog. And then also talking about having a fully integrated experience, I can actually get reports or product recommendations based off of the items that I've frequently ordered or that I've recently ordered that I'm purchasing in the largest quantity. So again, it's not just about having the option to go online and do things. It's about having the option to go online and do things that are tailored to my needs. Secondarily, coming down here, you're seeing things like bulk add to cart. So maybe I'm a B2B wholesale customer, maybe I'm a retail customer. I'll use an example of a project I'm working now. So I'm a wholesaler, I sell into retail environments. They typically are just restocking shelves. They may occasionally go in and see what's new and browse around our catalog. But again, I'm typically coming in, I have these 15 items, I need 50 units of each, and it's just restocking or refilling my back stock and making sure I have inventory on my items. And so via that bulk add to cart, I can do things like a CSV upload. I can quickly come in and just start typing SKU by SKU because I've done business with you for years. You've got that repeat purchase. And so it's a quick and easy way for me to get in and get what I need and move on. Same concept with the favorites list, right? Is what are the items that I'm regularly buying and how quickly can I get in, get that order placed and moved on. Secondarily, so we talked about, the ability to take action, that's key, but also giving account visibility and eliminating some of the inbound Q&A you're getting is equally important here. So being able to come in and have things like showing all of those orders coming over from the ERP system. So not just online orders, not just offline orders, but all orders, regardless of source, with an ability to go into each of those orders, see the order line details, see the order status, see if there's a shipment that's tied to it. Again, all part of eliminating that inbound Q&A for your team. Coming further down here, similar concept on the invoices, and then ultimately being able to pay those invoices online. So, and even things like on here at the bottom, editing accounts. So maybe I've got a new retail location I need to add a new ship to for the business. Maybe I need to add a new primary contact in my purchasing department because I've had some turnover or some reallocation of employees. But again, it's all about giving those customers not just an ability to do business online, but an ability to do business online the same way that they would do it over the phone or in person or via email. So again, just wanted to give a little bit of a visual on what that could look like. I'm obviously happy to, if you want to reach out to your individual CAMs, they can reach out to me and schedule time to meet. And again, I'd be happy to do a deeper dive on the demo side of things. The next item we talked about was next issue avoidance. And I spent a good bit of time on this, so I'm not going to go too in depth, but it's all about if you're having less frequent interactions and they're less urgent because customers can self-service, you want to make sure that you're giving proactive tidbits. So, hey, I know you were calling today about inventory or about order status, or maybe you were doing an RMA, but now I'm going to say, or indicate that there's things you can do on your own. Or is there anything else I can help you with? I see that you've placed an order once a week for the last couple of weeks. So can I go ahead and queue something up for you for next week? Making sure it's the issue word here I don't love. It's really about next activity avoidance and making sure you're offering those customers as infrequent an interaction, but as meaningful interaction as possible. Going back to the feel, it's all about creating, and this feels kind of funny to say, but it's all about creating this positive vibe. So you want the customer to feel like it was easy to do business, like they want to do business. And when they've talked to you, it's not because they have a problem always. It's about, again, here's what I need. I need this for my account. Maybe you're proactively reaching out to the customer and looking for some upsell or cross-sell opportunities because your team isn't overloaded with inbound requests. So again, all about making those good feel and good rapport with those customers versus always having some issue when you talk to them. You want a positive reason to work with these customers. And then again, all of that ties into quality over efficiency. So how can I provide the best level of service, the most meaningful interactions, and have something done during those interactions rather than just dealing with disgruntled customers and saying, hey, I'll take care of this for you, don't worry. It's about making sure when you're talking to those customers, you're obviously taking care of their needs, but you're being more strategic and more impactful for the business in total there. So those are the principles in reality. The final component to all this, obviously, so words on screen are good, but what can I be doing as a business to get started? And this is where I'm going to put on my sales consultant hat a little bit and talk to you about kind of what I advise clients to do, what my kind of sales cycle, for lack of a better word, but what my approach is to these projects. And we hit on it a little bit last week, but you got to think of, particularly when you're looking at self-service alternatives, how can I devise a long-term program? So what is my long-term vision? What is my ultimate goal when it comes to self-service solutions? So is that simply just moving all of my invoicing online and collections online? Is that simply just putting an automated order entry tool in place? So you want to define that long-term program vision. From there, you devise a series of projects. It may just be one project. It may be 5 projects, but a series of projects that tie into that long-term program. So an example in real world, I have a client that I've been working with that actually just got started on their project. They had 3 full-time customer-facing employees that were handling all inbound requests. They were handling all manual data entry, rekeying of orders, and then they were also handling all of the fulfillment process and getting things from the front desk into the back warehouse, more or less there. And so what they've done is they've said, all right, let's break this down into a series of projects. What do we want to do in the short term? What do we want to do in the long term? And what does that progression look like? And what do those phases look like with specific actionable objectives? So again, series of projects that tie into that program. And the projects don't always have to be platform-based. It may be reshuffling of your org chart. It may be additional hiring, but those projects ultimately tie into that program and are often supported by platforms. So SimCloud is a platform that can be implemented as part of a project or as part of an overall program. But the platforms are things that enable your employees to do better. So I'll take off my SimCloud hat here. Think of it even in a marketing automation sense. So if your goal is to put your long-term program vision is to scale your marketing efforts and be, the digital thought leader in your space. And the series of projects may be implementing an email automation tool. Maybe that's phase 1. Maybe phase 2 is additional hiring. Maybe phase 3 is taking that additional hiring and identifying third-party resources, third-party platforms, third-party solutions. So that's just an example, independent of SimCloud, to kind of, tee up how platforms are part of projects. They may be the project themselves, or they may support those project efforts. And the ultimate goal of all of this is to put solutions in place that allow your customers to do business on their terms, i.e. making them happy, making them loyal to your business. And then how can you make your employees as efficient as possible? You want to lower their effort. You want them happy in their job performance. Nobody likes doing repetitive, unnecessary tasks. And so again, those solutions are the ultimate derivative of all things that are up top there. So kind of the 3PS framework, you can put a different term on it. You can call it PPPS. You can just look at the words on screen here, but ultimately it's all about establishing that long-term vision, establishing the series of projects, identifying what you need to support those projects, and ultimately putting solutions in place there. For me, coming back again to not just SimCloud projects, but really just basic project management kind of overlook here is define your vision and pick your strategy. And you're seeing 2 things on here. This is typically where on my side of things, when we get to the finalizing stage on a project, is what do we want to do here? Do we want to set a low-hanging fruit goal? So maybe I don't have a ton of resources internally. Maybe I have, limited capacity. Maybe I have busy season coming up. So can we pick an easy goal that a smaller team can execute on, can get a win on, can limit the scope of the project and the budget, and get some ROI, and then tackle a bigger project in a phase 2? Or do I have a project team that's already assembled, and do I want to pick a harder goal and then work towards that in a phase 1? So like I said, it's all about you as an individual. What is your capacity? What are your goals? What are your objectives? What are the resources at your disposal? So this is, for me, kind of the last step. Typically when you work with me, if you're interested in SimCloud, when you're working with me, what we'll do is we'll identify a ton of requirements and objectives long-term. And then we'll identify who the project team is. So what resources are available to execute What are some organizational gaps we may have, and how do we fill those gaps? Is that third party? Is that new hires? And then ultimately it comes down to you as the business decision maker. What do we want to do? Do we want to pick an easy goal and tackle it and get short-term return? Or do we want to pick a harder goal, have a longer scope of the project, but to tackle a bigger overall objective or series of objectives there? So define your vision, pick your strategy, commit to it, knock it out, get that ROI, and you're happy there. And then again, I kind of have said this without saying this, but you want to think big and start small. So there's kind of three groupings, and I would imagine pretty much everyone on today's call falls into one of these groupings. Is again, things on the right over here. So maybe you're new to self-service. So you've always done things in person or over the phone or via email. You've always had that white glove service. It's always been part of your operating model, and you've never actually made any moves online, in which case I often advise starting small. So, again, we want to make sure that we've identified there's a need. There's going to be adoption on the other side of it, because again, all of this adoption is the key. But again, if you're new to self-service, you're new to online interactions, let's start small and scale it up once we've gotten proof of concept there. The second bucket is people that are replacing a failing or minimally effective, is probably a better word than failing, platform. So we have the solution in place. Maybe it's an older site that we kind of did on our own. Maybe it's a custom site. Maybe it's a site that just flat out didn't work because we didn't devise it with the right strategy. But you're open to the idea of self-service. That's step one. You're, again, in a market that will take and adopt self-service alternatives. But what your efforts have been in the past have not really worked. It's failed, it's stalled out. It's basically just a cost bucket or a system that's not getting use and really, again, not getting value for your organization. And then the final bucket here is, I have a successful platform. So my customers can self-service. My customers are able to do it. Maybe there's a gap in there. Maybe it's not integrated and it's requiring your team to do some importing or VI jobs or manual rekeying of those orders. So maybe you have an existing website, everything just kind of goes into a back-end bucket and then someone's got to pick it up. But again, you've had success, you just need to improve. So I work with customers across this spectrum. Like I said, most of you on today's call are going to fall into one of these. And again, it's all about devising a strategy, a plan, and a long-term vision that's going to give you the equipment really to be successful and to start moving towards that self-service route. As I talked about earlier, that Amazon effect is not going to go away anytime soon. So I definitely think we need to at least be thinking this direction. And the final thing I'm going to hit on here is, what can I do to get started today? So what can I be doing mentally to really think through what can I do in the short term that's going to be working towards that long-term vision? So on the first bullet here, and I'm actually going to be following up with Joanne and some of the individual cams here and making sure that I get our SIM health check into everyone's hands. So this is a 2-minute exercise. I'm noticing the typo right there, so forgive me for misspelling checkup, or my team for misspelling checkup, but it's really a 2-minute exercise. You can burn through it pretty quickly. It's all about you, and whether you're the controller, whether you're the sales manager, whether you're the owner, whether you're the CFO, CTO, whatever level of the organization you're at, it's just a reflection of how you operate as a business when it comes to self-service alternatives. And one thing that I typically advise is, have different people at the organization take it and see where you fall. Maybe some people think you're a 70 out of 100. Maybe some people within the organization think you're a 20 out of 100, and maybe the owner thinks you're 100 out of 100. So again, that's a good starting point. It definitely is, you'll see when you get in there and do it. It's not burdensome. You don't have to engage a sales rep. No one's pushing anything down your throat. Not that I would do that anyways, but again, just a way for you to do some self-reflection and identify where you think you stand. And again, where those opportunities might be for the business. The second bullet here, I'm happy to share more information, and you can work through your cams on this as well, or come to our website to learn more about the 3PS framework. I spent a good bit of time on it, so not to beat that to death, but again, really making sure you have progression towards that long-term program vision is key. You can obviously schedule a demo. I definitely advise reaching out to your CAMs. I would love to work with anyone and everyone on today's call. And again, if SimCloud may not be right for you, and my job as a consultant and not just a pushy salesperson is to say, hey, what you're looking to do here is a great fit for us, and here's what success looks like. Or, hey, what you're looking to do isn't really aligned with us, and here's what I've seen other people do in the past. As I alluded to, I've been here for almost 5 years now, and it's all about mutuality and making sure that as a sales consultant, I'm not just looking for a sale. I'm really looking to help you scale. And I know that your CAMs and consultants on the SWK side, they have the same spirit. It's all about making sure that we're progressing and improving as a business, not about buying SimCloud or buying a new ERP or whatever that may be. It's all about what's best for you. And then I alluded to this earlier. I'd advise listening to, reading, even go and checking out the Cliff Notes. I personally, I think I knocked out the audio book in a couple car rides, longer car rides, obviously. But again, it's just a good, insightful way. It really puts you in the shoes of yourself as a consumer, and then also puts you in the shoes of yourself as a professional. And what can I do as a salesperson, not just a salesperson, but a selling entity that's selling goods or services? What can I be doing to improve? What can I be doing to make life easier and better for my customers? And ultimately, as we talked about at the beginning, what can I do to drive that long-term customer loyalty that's going to help me capture as much of my market as possible, do it as efficiently as possible, and really scale that bottom line, be profitable as a business, grow the company. Not just good for leadership, it's good for everybody when that's the case. So that's kind of my presentation today. I hope everybody found that pretty insightful. Jolene, I don't know if there's any questions that have come through, but I'm going to turn it back over to you, and you can wrap us up. And if there's, like I said, any questions, I'm happy to hit them.
Thank you, Jack. We'll now open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please enter them into the questions section of your GoToWebinar. And just a reminder, everyone, we do have a subject matter expert here. This is a great opportunity to have your questions answered in real time. And we do have a couple that have come through during the presentation, Jack. The first one is, in your opinion, what is the most important aspect of the 3PS framework for us to implement to help maximize customer loyalty?
It's a great question, and undoubtedly, it's the program vision. You can't get where you're going if you don't know where that is. That's a pretty cheesy cliche there, but I mean, you just got to think about it like this. You're investing your capital, your resources, your employees, and it's a risk. Any project you take on is a risk, and so you have to know what you're working towards so you can measure success, so you can learn from what you did well, what you didn't do well. So definitely program is number one there. Equally important in my mind, scratch that, not equally important, almost as equally important, is taking things from a project perspective. So if your program vision is a big rocket ship in the sky, you're not just gonna take off without doing some testing, without making sure the motor works, without making sure the components work. It's really about establishing that long-term vision, and then what do projects or a single project look like to get us there. So love that question. Love the way you're thinking there, and undoubtedly it's all about where do we want to be long-term and how do we get there in the short term.
Great, and we have one more. After implementing the 3PS framework, how long do you think it will take for us to see results in enhanced customer loyalty?
Another good question. That one's probably a little more gray for me, because it really is all about where you want to get to and what does adoption look like. What I will say is that I measure project success, and it's obviously on an individual kind of case-by-case basis, but what is our objective here? So as it relates to SimCloud and SelfService Alternatives, maybe we're doing a B2B portal, and so I'll just use a real-world example here. A client working with, they have a wholesale business, they have a retail business as well, or a direct-to-consumer business. They were looking to, in the short term, scratch that, in the long term, I'm going to go back to my 3PS here. So long-term program vision was to move all of their business online. They didn't want to be doing any in-person selling. They didn't want to have a full-scaled customer service staff. So they wanted to move everything online. Obviously, a very big far-reaching goal. So what we decided to do was start just on the wholesale side of their business. And within the wholesale side of their business, we wanted to migrate, we were going to measure success by migrating 50% of their transactions on the wholesale side of their business online within a 12-month period. So again, it's taking that long-term objective and saying phase one, we're going to tackle the wholesale side of the business. We're going to build a B2B portal, and we want to move 50% of those transactions or those orders online within a year. Hopefully we do 70%, 80%, but that was the goal. And then phase two, once we've had successful implementation on the B2B portal side, is how can we overhaul the direct-to-consumer or public-facing side of our web assets or our website, and then how can we streamline that as much as possible. So they were doing non-integrated sales in a direct-to-consumer environment. Long-term, we wanted to get those integrated, but in the short term, we knew that those wholesale customers were there. We knew that we could move some percentage of them online, and we were determining short-term success as kind of a 50% adoption period within a given year. So I felt like a real-world example might help answer that question better. But if I didn't give you what you were looking for, I can follow up on it, or you can follow up with me afterward.
Perfect, and that looks like all the questions we have, Jack. So give me one moment as I take back screen control.
Cool. Thanks, Jolene.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jack, for your informative presentation and for taking the time to be here today. For more information on SimCloud, check out our website at swktech.com and click on SimCloud under the Customer Interaction Management section within the Products tab. Thank you, everyone, for attending our webinar. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, guys.